When we talk about raw talent and unfulfilled potential, DeMarcus Boogie Cousins is a name that inevitably comes up. Known for his dominant presence on the court,
one of my favorite players in the NBA the last few years has been Boogie Cousins.
Yeah, all of us as players and former players, we look at Cousins
because he was having a phenomenal year.
Cousins also earned a reputation for his fiery temper and relentless approach to the game. His story is one of incredible highs and devastating lows, a tale of a player who could have been one of the all-time greats if not for the obstacles that derailed his career. But as we look back on his journey, we also have to ask, is there still hope for Cousins to reclaim some of that lost glory? DeMarcus Cousins' early life was far from glamorous. Born on August 13, 1990 in Mobile, Alabama, Cousins grew up surrounded by drugs, violence, and poverty. Despite this harsh environment, he managed to steer clear of trouble, thanks to the discipline instilled by his mother and the outlet he found in sports. Cousins initially had dreams of becoming an NFL player, but by the age of 12, standing at 6'4", it became clear that his future lay in basketball, not football. Basketball wasn't Cousins' first love, but when an AAU coach, Danny Pritchett, spotted him at school, Cousins' life took a decisive turn. Pritchett, who mistook the towering Cousins for a high school senior, quickly realized he had found a gem when Cousins revealed he was just an 8th grader. The young DeMarcus joined Pritchett's team, and although he wasn't the most naturally gifted player, his work ethic was unmatched. Cousins spent countless hours honing his skills, determined to become the best. By the time he entered high school, Cousins was a 6'8" forward with the ball handling skills of a guard. His focus on basketball was absolute. He didn't date, wasn't interested in cars, and didn't even have a driver's license. By his sophomore year, Cousins was ranked as the #1 high school player in the country. However, his notorious temper was already beginning to show. Opponents knew they couldn't outplay him, so they resorted to provoking him. Cousins was frequently baited into altercations, and his emotional instability became a recurring issue. Despite these challenges, Cousins was highly sought after by major colleges, and eventually chose to play for Coach John Calipari at the University of Kentucky. At Kentucky, Cousins was a man among boys, standing at 6'10", and nearly 300 pounds with a 7'6" wingspan. Few players could match his combination of size, strength, and skill. During his lone college season, he averaged 15 points on 56% shooting, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game in just 23 minutes. After leading Kentucky to the Elite Eight, Cousins declared for the 2010 NBA Draft, where he was selected as the 5th overall pick by the Sacramento Kings. DeMarcus Cousins' transition to the NBA was anything but smooth. While he dominated at Kentucky, the NBA presented a whole new set of challenges. Cousins was big and strong, capable of battling with the league's giants in the post. He was a natural rebounder with an uncanny ability to finish around the basket using spin moves and drop steps that defied his size. However, his game was still raw. Cousins had a penchant for taking ill-advised jump shots, making him an inefficient scorer. He was turnover-prone and inconsistent on defense, often struggling to maintain focus, but the biggest issue of all was Cousins' temper. His lack of maturity and emotional control were apparent from the start. One bad call or missed shot could send him spiraling, leading to technical fouls, ejections, and arguments with coaches, teammates, and the media. His first 3 seasons were marked by flashes of brilliance overshadowed by frequent outbursts. During this time, Cousins averaged 16 points and 10 rebounds per game on 45% shooting, but his production was marred by a high turnover rate and poor shot selection. The Kings failed to win more than 30 games in each of those seasons, stuck at the bottom of the league standings. Part of the problem was the Kings' unstable environment. The team was in a constant state of flux, with players coming and going, coaches being fired, and front office turmoil. Cousins had no veteran leadership to guide him, no stability to help him mature into the star he could become. The weight of being the franchise player on a losing team exacerbated his frustrations, leading to a vicious cycle of underperformance and emotional outbursts. Despite the chaos around him, Cousins' talent was undeniable. Each year, his game improved. He developed a strong back-to-the-basket technique, becoming one of the NBA's most prolific post scorers. His shooting range expanded, first to mid-range and eventually beyond the three-point line, making him a versatile offensive threat. Cousins also began to improve his court vision, becoming an effective passer out of the post and in pick-and-roll situations. Defensively, Cousins made strides as well. He became an above-average post defender, and, when motivated, could be a decent help defender. By 2014, in his fourth season, Cousins was averaging 23 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, all career highs. His shooting efficiency improved to 50%, and he posted personal bests in blocks and steals. However, despite his individual success, the Kings remained a losing franchise, plagued by poor draft choices and coaching instability. The Kings' dysfunction only heightened Cousins' frustrations. The team's inability to build around their star player led to more technical fouls and ejections as Cousins continued to struggle with his temper. Yet on the court, he was becoming an unstoppable force. In 2015, Cousins averaged 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game, earning his first All-Star selection and a spot on the All-NBA second team. The following season, Cousins reached new heights, averaging a career-high 27 points per game and making another All-Star appearance. Despite his dominance, the Kings' continued failures left Cousins feeling trapped. Finally, during an interview at the 2017 All-Star Game, Cousins learned that he had been traded to the New Orleans Pelicans, ending his tumultuous 7-year tenure with the Kings. The pairing of DeMarcus Cousins with Anthony Davis, another dominant big man in New Orleans, was one of the most exciting front-court combinations the NBA had seen in years. Together, they were expected to bring the Pelicans back to relevance and make a deep playoff run. However, the fit between the two wasn't as seamless as hoped. Both players liked to operate in the same areas on the floor, and the team's roster lacked adequate spacing and three-point shooting. Despite these challenges, Cousins thrived. He slimmed down, improving his mobility and stamina, and played some of the best basketball of his career. Cousins averaged 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 5.4 assists per game during his time with the Pelicans, showcasing his all-around game. His passing, in particular, stood out, as he became one of the best playmaking centers in the league, often drawing comparisons to Nikola Jokic, who would later emerge as the premier passing big man. For the first time in his career, Cousins was winning, and it looked like he would finally make his long-awaited playoff debut. But fate had other plans. In January 2018, Cousins suffered a devastating Achilles tear in the final minute of a game against the Houston Rockets. The injury ended his season and cast a shadow over his future. The Achilles injury was a turning point in DeMarcus Cousins' career. Before the injury, he was on track to sign a massive contract extension, potentially worth over $200 million. Instead, he entered free agency in 2018 with significant doubts about his future. Cousins signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with the Golden State Warriors, hoping to rehabilitate his image and win a championship with the defending champions. Cousins returned to the court in January, but he was not the same player. His mobility was limited, and while he still showed flashes of his former brilliance, he was no longer the dominant force he once was. Cousins' diminished athleticism affected his defense, making him a liability at times. Despite these challenges, he contributed to the Warriors' playoff run, but another injury, a torn quadriceps, further hampered his effectiveness. The Warriors made it to the finals but fell to the Toronto Raptors, and Cousins' dreams of a championship were dashed. In the offseason, Cousins signed with the Los Angeles Lakers, hoping for a fresh start. However, just 1 month later, he tore his ACL during a summer workout, ending his 2020 season before it even began. Cousins' career seemed to be in freefall as injuries continued to derail his progress. He made brief appearances with the Houston Rockets, Los Angeles Clippers, and Milwaukee Bucks, but none of these stints lasted long. By the end of 2021, it seemed as though Cousins' days in the NBA might be over. Despite his injuries and setbacks, DeMarcus Cousins refused to give up. In 2022, his former coach Mike Malone, now with the Denver Nuggets, gave Cousins another chance. Cousins signed with the Nuggets during the 2022 playoffs and showed that he still had something left in the tank. While his minutes were limited, Cousins was productive, providing a scoring and rebounding boost off the bench when Nikola Jokic rested. His performance in Denver reignited hope that Cousins could still contribute at the highest level. However, as Cousins transitioned into the next phase of his career. It became clear that his NBA days were likely behind him. In April 2023, Cousins signed with the Guaynabo Mets in Puerto Rico's Baloncesto Superior National League. There, he put up impressive numbers, averaging 20.4 points, 10.9 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per game. His shooting touch was still there, as he shot 44% from beyond the arc. Despite leading the Mets to the playoffs in the semifinals, they fell short of reaching the finals. Later that year, in December 2023, Cousins signed with the Taiwan Beer Leopards in Taiwan's T1 League. His plan was to play a few home games in January 2024, with the option to extend his stay. Cousins quickly made an impact, and on February 23, 2024, he announced that he was done trying to make an NBA comeback. Instead, he was focused on what lay ahead, enjoying the game overseas and embracing life after the NBA. His decision to retire from NBA aspirations was solidified when he re-signed with the Taiwan Beer Leopards in March 2024. Despite moving away from the NBA, Cousins continued to make waves internationally. He was named the T1 League's most popular player of the year for the 2023-24 season and led his team to a finals victory, earning finals MVP honors. Cousins' success overseas proved that while his NBA career may have been cut short, his love for the game and his ability to dominate on the court were still very much alive. DeMarcus Cousins' story is one of unfulfilled potential, but it's also one of resilience and perseverance. At his peak, Cousins was one of the most dominant centers in the NBA, capable of taking over games with his scoring, rebounding, and playmaking. He averaged 22 points, 11 rebounds, and nearly 4 assists per game over his career, with 4 All-Star appearances and 2 All-NBA selections. His size, skill, and basketball IQ made him a perfect fit for the modern NBA. And there's no doubt that if not for his injuries, Cousins would have been a surefire Hall of Famer. But injuries took away Cousins' prime, and with it, the opportunity to fully realize his potential. Unlike other players whose careers were cut short by injuries, Cousins' fiery temperament and troubled past meant that his decline was met with less sympathy. The public's perception of Cousins as a hothead overshadowed the sadness of seeing a great player brought low by forces beyond his control. As Cousins continues his career overseas, it's clear that he has made peace with his journey. He's no longer chasing the NBA dream, but instead, he's focused on enjoying the game he loves and exploring new opportunities around the world. Cousins may never get the recognition he deserves for his time in the NBA, but for those who witnessed his brilliance, his legacy will always be remembered. DeMarcus Cousins' story is far from over. While his NBA days might be behind him, Cousins is writing a new chapter on the international stage. After successful stints in Puerto Rico and Taiwan, Cousins has continued to find ways to keep his basketball journey alive, demonstrating that his passion for the game remains as strong as ever. The 2024 Paris Olympics saw the sport of 3x3 basketball explode in popularity, turning it into a global sensation. Inspired by this new wave, Cousins has now set his sights on making a full international comeback by joining a Chinese 3x3 basketball team. The fast-paced, high-intensity nature of 3x3 basketball is a perfect fit for Cousins' physical style of play and basketball IQ. His addition to the team has brought significant attention to the league, as fans eagerly watch to see if Cousins can dominate this new arena, as he did in the NBA. As we look back on Cousins' career, it's impossible not to wonder what might have been, had injuries and controversies not derailed his NBA journey. He was once one of the most versatile and dominant centers in the league, capable of scoring, rebounding, passing, and defending at an elite level. Yet even with all the setbacks, Cousins' impact on the game of basketball is undeniable. His move to the international 3x3 circuit is a testament to his resilience and desire to continue competing at the highest level. So, will DeMarcus Cousins still make something of himself in the basketball world? Only time will tell. But one thing is for certain, wherever his journey takes him next, Boogie will bring the same intensity, passion, and love for the game that made him one of the most feared and respected players of his generation. As he embarks on this new chapter, the world will be watching, eager to see how Cousins continues to leave his mark on the sport he loves.